Okay then, so good afternoon everyone. Excuse me, today's Friday, August 12, 2022. Time is 1:04 p.m. This is a special meeting agenda with a member of our Natural Resources Advisory Board, Mr. Jamie Sturgis. I am officially calling the meeting to order, and attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. And do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the one and only business item is presentation by Jamie Sturgis from the advisory board, as I indicated, and a recommendation on Lake CDA metal study and a potential vote by the Board of County Commissioners. Jamie, go right ahead. You might want to sit up here, hit the button, and it's omnidirectional.
Okay,
It'll pick
they
you
don't
up
touch
there.
it.
You don't, correct.
You don't need it any closer than where it is.
Okay, I'd like to
So you gotta push
push
the
the
button.
button.
So it goes green.
There you go, you're all set. Now
Live,
you'll hear yourself.
live from Kootenai County. Here with me, I'm the chair of the Kootenai County Natural Resource Advisory Board, and with me is Richard Meyer, sitting behind with the other two young men. And he's here because of a special interest in a Lakeshore property owner and member of a Lakeshore Homeowners Association as well.
Kootenai and Lakeshore Owners Association.
Okay.
CLPOA, okay.
Excuse me?
Coeur d'Alene Lake Property Owner, it's CLPOA.
Yes.
Okay.
And also Terry Harwood in the light blue shirt, dark blue shirt, who's the executive director of the basin, the BEIPC. And Terry acted several years ago to help me find an opportunity to volunteer, for which I'm getting even by asking him to be here today on his day off, representing any input or questions that the commissioners may have as to how the request that the Resource Advisory Board is forwarding fits into other studies and work and available funds that may or may not be available for this type of work on the lake. So I'm going to be very welcoming of any hard questions. We'll go to those two gentlemen. I'm here to talk about the process. So starting about 6 months ago, there was some interest raised about, well, there's been interest raised for years, but from the University of Idaho, a request for funding for a research grant on the effects of waves and possibly resuspending or suspending sediments in shoreline and shallow bays and areas in the form of nutrients in order to increase the knowledge of the nutrient sources from within the lake itself. And for decades, lake sediments have been considered the final resting point of sediments. Once they're on the lake bottom, they get covered with new sediments, and it's out of sight, out of mind, and out of the biota pathways. But as I read this morning in Fernan Lake, sometimes what gets into a lake doesn't have a way to get out of a lake, and whether they go to the bottom and stay there, or whether the sediments fall to the bottom and then get resuspended or reactivated with different types of biota is an area of research that I'm not an expert in, but I'm aware of those studies. The research proposal from Dr. Frank Wilhelm,
Yeah. Frank Wilhelm.
he had several components in it, and Rich and I had a chance to sit in with him and with the IDEQ where they were formatting the proposal and the approach. And they had a budget of, between $100,000 and $200,000 for a study that included phosphorus, nitrogen, nutrients, different forms of algae. And they also, at my suggestion, also had a section on metals, the metals that come out of the natural mineralized rock and are concentrated in the mines and have been placed through the mining waste over 100 years or so in the Silver Valley and some of the adjoining watersheds. And there's lots of work being done, there's lots of money being spent in stabilizing the sources of those. But what we're left with on the lake bottom itself in Kootenai Lake is kind of I guess the word is interesting, no man's land, because it's not included in the Superfund remedy other than work to do on nutrients and work to do on the lake management activities that the IDEQ does pretty much on behalf of all the other agencies. EPA can't do work on the lake bed because it's not part of the remedy for the Superfund site. And the funds available from DEQ for other types of studies, such as waste load allocation and some of the other ways to try and get the lake water in attainment status for dissolved trace metals, and of course zinc, copper, arsenic, cadmium, and is pretty much the universe of the trace metals we're looking for. So in those discussions, I was asked, why doesn't the county chip in some money? And I kind of joked and I said, well, the budget of the Natural Resource Advisory Board, well, Commissioner Duncan told me very clearly it's up to and including zero. And we've operated in that way for the 3 years that we've been working together. And, but I'm not against asking, and I see a good proposal. I had a chance to influence some of the scoping on it and to find out more about whether the metal problems in the lake are from St. Joe River, Coeur d'Alene River, other endpoints along the shorelines of the lake, or is it also perhaps resuspension from both natural and boat-caused wakes and waves. This study will provide, I think, the first shot at answering that question. And the timing, well, I told myself I was going to try and talk about the need, the timing, and the opportunity that presents us, and I'll try and just finish my comments with those three. The need for the information is timely because EPA is now trying to figure out their solution on the 10 million tons or more of mine waste that are in the Coeur d'Alene River bed and the Coeur d'Alene River banks, which I live along, which is part of the interest, aside from my technical background. But they're looking at capping with rock or dredging or a combination or adding wing walls or different types of mechanical process devices and approaches to stop the erosion of the 10 million tons that's been estimated still in the river between Harrison and pretty much with the Catalpa Mission, which is the flat stretch of the Coeur d'Alene River, or whether to stabilize it or just, they're looking at those with a plan that's in advanced stages. The decision is due next year. So having the information on how to stop the source or slow down the source or manage the source, they're all expensive. Some are hideously expensive. Some are just prohibitively expensive. But there's funds available if they can come up with a solution that can work. And having this information about whether it's an annual event with a big spring runoff or big floods, or whether it's largely or possibly none. I don't have any idea whether we're going to find that there are no trace metals being resuspended or not. But without having a study like this, it doesn't give the EPA some of the information that I think would be useful. And that puts Kootenai County also in the active role of having something, control over what happens in the lake. Because inside the Superfund, the EPA, I won't say they do what they want. Would you say that EPA does what they want on the Superfund site with input from the executive?
Not as long as I'm around, they won't. I shouldn't say that. No, they're very sensitive.
Terry, if you're gonna speak, you have to.
Oh, I gotta get to
speak.
that.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was supposed to.
Sit up there. There you go.
Why don't you sit, let me finish my
Go ahead.
last two comments, and then, but Terry and I had a discussion yesterday about why I thought it would be important for him to be here today in order to at least have input on the interface between the information and the Basin Cleanup Commission and the EPA scope and some of the things going on in EPA staffing. I think make it even more important that the county become more involved or more engaged. In this case, I think even contribute some funds to work solving some of the technical questions about the lake and its association with the sediments coming out from the river. So the opportunity is the University of Idaho research study is going on anyway. They've told me that they could fill bottles while they're collecting bottles with certain types of preservatives for nutrients. They can also collect bottles with a different stabilizing material in them, typically it's nitric acid, that they can stay for up to 6 months. If we can come up with funds in the next 6 months, then those can go through the trace metal analyzers, and if not, they will have perhaps wasted effort in collecting those samples. But after 6 months, they have a date limit of how long they can hold them. And so I came to a couple individual commissioners 4 months ago in May when this thing first, and I was told that the available discretionary funds had pretty much been issued for the year, but I'd have to wait and come back and look for budget money. So that's what we did, and that's why the timing is, the timing is an opportunity, I think, to piggyback for about $63,000 on a study that's actually costing $180,000, which does a lot of other things besides the metals, but this is just an opportunity I didn't think we'd want to pass up. So we took it to the advisory board, and I've sent the study proposal from Frank Wilhelm, dated April 22nd. That was with the attachments, and our board came up with a one-page, two-page, I guess, request letter dated July 14th, one page, and that was attached to the minutes, and I think it's been circulated. So that's as concise as I can put it.
Okay. Terry, did you want to?
Well, I just want to emphasize this, it's really important to me that the county stay engaged in all of this. And then I've had long discussions with the governor's office and with the director of DEQ and everything as well. So we want to, because we need to have the input from the community in all the decisions that are being made. And that's been part of my job for the last 18 years, to make sure the things that come from you folks, you're involved in. And I review everything that EPA is doing. So that's, I'm your person there. So it's really important. Just a little bit of history. In 2004 and 5, I got $6 million of Clean Water Act funds. It wasn't surplus Superfund money, to do studies of every kind of thing you could think of in the Kootenai Basin. And we've used the University of Idaho quite a bit in that area as well. And the results of 31 different studies and projects, subgrants, the EPA and the Trust and the state of Idaho have used the results of those studies extensively, making decisions on what to do specifically in the lower basin, and some in the upper, but mostly the lower basin. So anything that we can do to come up with some data that would be needed for the EPA to be able to make Superfund circle decisions in the lower basin would be good. Now, most of you have been around me for some time. You know I don't want to waste money on studies. I want to get work done. But the idea that we don't have a source of contamination coming down the river from the mining operations anymore. They're meeting all their standards. And what we found is all that 10 million tons that Jamie was talking about that are in the river now, that's the greatest source of contamination of metals getting to Coeur d'Alene Lake now. It's not the operator, it's this stuff that's been lying around in here for years, and the banks. Now, NRCS has been working with private landowners, and they have stabilized quite a bit of the banks in the river, and that's, of course, the landowner has to pay 50%, and the Department of Agriculture pays 50% for those types of projects. But I've got a whole rack of studies that we're using, the EPA and the rest of the agencies are using from that $6 million in Clean Water Act money I got away many years ago. So it's important to deal with the sources of the contamination. The main ones for the Coeur d'Alene, for the lake now, of metals are the river bottom and the banks of the river. There's places in the banks when we were building the new bridge across the river at the mouth of Harrison on Highway 97, EPA asked me to monitor that activity for them. We were hitting 25 to 30,000 parts per million contamination, and the cleanup level is 530. So you're at 30,000. So that's really hot stuff. It's the old bottom of the process that they used years ago in mining, where they threw away half of the product, and that's why that stuff's so hot. That muck in the riverbanks and the bottom down there. So it's something we need to take a look at.
Yeah, I have a question for either of you. How does this dovetail with the work that the tribe has done over the years, the data that they've collected, which obviously was passed to the NAS for their study?
Well, first, I'm no expert on all the work that's been done in the basin, certainly on the tribe either. But from my awareness that I do have, I would suggest that most of that work that I'm aware of is on the static condition. You send a sample down, you take a core sample, you assay it, you analyze it near surface, just below the surface and at depth. And then you look at the water directly above it, again in a static condition, not a dynamic condition. And so there's data that shows in places more metals than others, and typically it's higher at the south end and lower at the north end, which is what you'd expect, a distance from source. My personal hope is that this study will show that there's not resuspension of metals, that it's not showing this to be more than an awareness issue. Because I'm not trying to find skeletons in a closet or ghosts under beds or anything. On the other hand, if it does show that there's resuspension, then there's an issue there that adding more source and continuing the source is more reasons for EPA to spend money faster. I first bought my property up here in 2006, and I was relying on a record of decision that Terry was a young man. So was I. We all were, I guess, then, or young people, I should say. But the idea of the wave study and the act of churning, exposing things that were otherwise buried, is only become more and more of an issue in Lake Coeur d'Alene as boats get bigger and storms are going to do what the storms are going to do anyway. But the knowledge base has to, I think, try and catch up with that so we can make decisions on that basis. Again, I don't know specifically the tribe. Terry, you may.
You know, and like I jokingly told Jamie, yes, I'm an engineer, not a scientist, so I like to get things done. So, but anyway, I don't know what all information they have, but I do know I have walked many sections of the river, and even up around Pinehurst, for instance, you can look at the riverbank and it's orange, and it's all cemented, and it's all that mineral stuff, that heavy metals, and it's got like a crust. You can't really break it up with a screwdriver, and that's the bank stuff that we're talking about. And then the material at the bottom of the river moves around like the sands on the Sahara Desert. You know, it's in dunes down there. EPA's mapped that with LiDAR. And so I don't know all of the stuff that's been gathered, and I don't know if we should gather more, but it seems to me that if we can combine these two things, if we're going to check for nutrients, it'd be kind of interesting to see how, at the same time when you're check for the nutrients, you would check for the metals at the same time. And you stop, it's $63,000, I believe. But we're talking about millions and millions of dollars of investment in the cleanup, so but I don't want to continue to study forever either. But EPA is, to a certain extent, struggling with what is the best approach to do remedies between, say, where the two rivers come together at Enaville and all the way clear to Harrison, because you got 18,000 acres of wetlands that's covered with the stuff down there. What are you going to do with 18,000 acres? And Jamie and I and others have been working on what to do with the bottom of the river where it's moving the stuff around and all those kind of. But honestly, folks, where would you put 10 million tons of mine waste that you dredged out of the river in the lower? Who would want it in their backyard, a pile of that big? My God, it's massive. So the pile in downtown Kellogg is 27 million cubic yards. That, when you drive along the freeway, that big clump up there, that's 27 million cubic yards. So you'd have a pile about a half to a third that size to put someplace in the lower basin. Where would you put it? We're trying to find a place not just to put some of the material that we're doing from the pilot project that Jamie and I have been working on with the covering and the dredging, down there. And even the East Mission Flats repository has only got 485,000 cubic yards of capacity, not 10 million. So you see, it's disposing of the stuff. On the tour, I'll show you guys a repository, a waste consolidation area in Canyon Creek that'll take 2 million yards, and you'll see how big a 2 million yard repository would be when it's done. It's massive, so we're talking 5 times that size. So anyway, it's what's the very best approach to all of this to deal with the contamination in the lower basin?
Terry, you talk in terms of yards and tons?
It's pretty simple. I used to buy gravel when I was a road engineer, either by the ton or by the cubic yard, but the material is fairly close. So it's about sixes, it's about the same. Yeah. And then somebody will throw in the term of metric ton. It's
a lot.
Yeah. Figure 10 tons in a standard dump truck.
Okay.
Or 10 cubic yards. How many dump truck loads would it take for 10 million cubic yards, million dump truck loads.
Moving dump truck.
Yeah, see. So it's a lot of material.
Okay. Questions? Leslie? Bill?
I have a couple. How many bays is this study taking place in?
Last I heard, they were looking at 3 sites.
Police.
Well, it's going on right now, isn't it? I mean, it's already started. I thought I saw an article in the paper.
I got back yesterday from a 5,000-mile, 3-week road trip, and I did not read the local paper,
Sure.
which I don't read anyway, but I mean, that's it. So I'm not sure.
Rich, are you aware of that? I mean, I don't know
Of
if
the
you
3
add,
bays.
you can sit, oh,
Yeah, there you go.
so more than 1 but less than 10?
Yeah, they didn't pick my bay, which is Powderhorn. I live on Powderhorn. I also represent the Powderhorn Road Users Association, which of course is recipient of any kind of study they do on wave action. And we're worried about nutrients being suspended, and because we're shallow in the back of Powderhorn Bay. It's about a 2-mile deep bay.
But this particular study is not in your bay, but it's in
Yeah.
2
No,
or 3
it's
bays.
another base that they think is, well, that Frank Wilhelm thinks is more subject to the heavy metal contamination and nutrients. I think it was, you know, I didn't.
I'm looking at the table of this proposal. I mean, there's thousands of samples. They're going to collect them at the bottom, halfway up the water column near the surface, and they're going to do it in different types of wave conditions, high, medium, and calm. And then they're going to have, what I heard, I thought it was 3 different sites, but I haven't been in on the final. And they were waiting, and a graduate student who's going to do her thesis on this has been waiting for funding. And of course, as we all know, summer goes awfully fast here. And, but the season is still not, they want to do it when the water's at the high level, not at the low level.
Right, so they've already started.
Well, yes, okay. They hadn't when I left 3 weeks ago, so I have no update on that.
I might interject, Mr. Chairman, too, that when you talk about these shallow bays, there'll be more of a tendency, because it's a shallow bay, when the material, the plant growth dies and sinks to the bottom of the rocks and basically eats up the oxygen. It'll occur faster than shallow areas and without 200 feet of water in the middle of the channel in the lake, so it just makes sense, you know.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Leslie?
I think that is it.
Let's see if the 3 sites are identified in Dr. Wilhelm's paper.
I would offer we could certainly find that information out, but probably not right now at the second.
That's okay. Okay, so you're looking for, I think it was 62 or 63,000 this fiscal year. Funding, yeah, because existing fiscal 22 fiscal year funds for 63,000. And if the funds are not available, you're looking at 52,500 for fiscal 23.
That was the best way that our
Right.
committee could, advisory board could figure out how to cover both of those alternatives.
And the Natural Resource Advisory Board obviously supports this.
Yes, we had a unanimous vote, and that was the letter that we dated July 14th requesting, and then in response to that, some magic was done on scheduling, because I was gone for 3 weeks, and I believe at least one of the commissioners is going to be leaving for a few weeks here,
Next to, yeah.
day after yesterday or something like that. So.
Thoughts?
I'd be willing to consider it for next year's budget, but not this year's.
Fiscal 23?
So my concern is it's going to be published, and so we can't actually increase the budget.
You can't increase the budget.
No. But what I would say is about mid-September, September 15th, we will know what is going to be returned to the county. So I'd be willing to take a look at that when we get our year-end projections auditor's office will do that for us and just say, okay, here's what we're thinking. And a lot of the spending slows down the last 2 weeks because of year-end information. So I'd be willing to look at that. I am concerned about some of the fund balance use in fiscal 23, so I'd love to find out, okay, how much is going to be returned versus how much we're spending in 23 versus how much we may have available for this particular project. So, and then the net difference would be the homeowners, you're still expecting that they would want to pitch into this if the county pitches in.
You know, I'd have to go back to both the lakeshore owners and also the Powderhorn Bay. You know, they might.
Yeah. So
I mean, we have 85 families along there, including Dennis Arminian, the president of Vista, is on our road, so.
yeah. For me, having buy-in from the lake property owners is really important. So that would be helpful to me as well.
That's a good point.
So in, it's about a month from now, so if maybe we don't necessarily need to reconvene on a board meeting, so we can handle it in a business meeting, but maybe we get together and I can give you the projections for the end of the year and see if there's sufficient funds and we can bring it back before the board.
And by mid-September now, we're only 2 weeks away from the start of the fiscal year.
But yeah, what's your fiscal year? What is it?
October.
Oh, it's like the government, federal feds, okay.
It's like the, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it's like the feds, right, not like the state.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I knew there was a difference.
Yeah. And so we'll have a better idea as to what kind of revenue is coming in and our fund balance, because more than likely that's where the money's going to come from, which is savings.
Would that, excuse me, Commissioner, would that be fiscal year 22?
No, 23.
Well,
The consideration will be fiscal year 22, but that's going to give us some clues to what kind of money's coming in for fiscal 23.
Okay. Because from the University of Idaho, I think if we give them the confirmation that one way or another, they should feel confident, because they have to spend a few dollars to buy cases of empty water sample bottles and the labor to collect those, which it's part of their original proposal, so they originally scheduled that before they found out that the DEQ had no funds available to support that part of the study.
Yeah, so we would have a decision for you no later than the end of September.
right, but I would say that would be good for them to go ahead and plan on it, because if they were already planning on it, it sounds like that would be their partnership with us. Does that make sense? Having the samples.
Well, I can't speak for them,
Sure.
but as a researcher, I know that if you're carrying a backpack and someone throws some bricks in it, it makes the pack heavier.
Right.
It'd be good to know that they're going to be wanted when you get to wherever you're going with that extra effort. So I don't know if there's such thing as a conceptual optimism, or what's the term that people use? Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I think it's a good way. I think there may be some money available. Whether we're going to hit the target, I think is the bigger question. You know, it's just that we need, that time will give us the visibility that we'll need to be able to make a determination as to how far we can go.
Okay.
And just so you know, and this is actually a different bucket of money, but for fiscal 23, we've allocated, if we approve it, $8 million of wage increases. It'll be the largest wage increase ever given to county employees. And a good part of that, of course, is the CPI. You know, what is it, 9% running at now annually? And we also have a number of employees that are well below market. So a substantial amount of our money is going in that direction. But we do have fund balance, we do have savings. We'll have more visibility into it come the middle of September.
Okay.
Yep.
So we go back, actually, could I ask that the commissioners would respond to Dr. Wilhelm's letter in one manner or another? Only because the Resource Advisory Board is well within its budget of $0, and I don't want to be spending money or effort.
We can certainly put in writing what we just shared with you.
I would think it'd be wonderful.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, to whatever that,
Okay.
That way we have something a little firmer that Rich and I can shop around, because I'm also going to shop in Mr. Harwood's budget. He keeps his hands in his pockets so no one else can get into
So
his budget.
is it fair to say, let me poll my co-commissioners here, that we can make a statement to the effect that we will make a contribution, but it'd just be a question of how much?
Yes, and I think that the more interest we get from the
Homeowners.
citizens, the homeowners, that helps me. Yes, so.
Clearly, the greater the contribution, the greater the commitment on the part of the homeowners, because they frankly stand most to gain in the immediate,
Yeah.
the more optimistic for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a fair statement.
Mr. Chairman, I
And I
might
can
just
include that.
interject too. that
Sure.
I've been working on getting the FEMA flood maps redone for
Yes.
Silver Valley,
Yes.
And we've built a coalition, somewhat what you guys like were talking about, and I've got the basin commissions paying for some of it, the towns are paying for some of it, the Shoshone County, and the ski area is paying for part of this process.
Silver?
Yeah, because they're paying $40,000 a year in premiums for flood insurance at the
Oh,
ski area. Yeah, so we've got, and we've been able to then approach FEMA with the map revision thing, and so we couldn't all afford it, but it really worked, especially it worked when FEMA saw some of the local people willing to contribute a little bit to it. That made a big difference.
Okay.
And I would say for me, it's more than 50%, in my mind, putting funding towards this. So I'm more than 50% there, if that makes sense. and tells you where I'm
Excuse
at.
me, are you looking for 50% funding?
No.
No.
Where my
In her
decision,
Oh, your
decision-making
decision.
process.
my decision is more than 50% there, but once again, I need to see where the county is financially, and I need
Yeah.
to see some significant partnership, I suppose, with the homeowners.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we can come up with some. I know there's some anonymous donors in there for dollars in the hundreds, but it's hardly any one homeowner's responsibility to give
Oh, sure.
thousands of dollars.
Correct.
But we will do that, and we'll make our effort. And,
Bill, are you okay with that too?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. When it comes to wanting to do this, I'm 100%. But it makes a difference. We have to find out how much money we have. And the more local participation, the more likely the county commissioners, I believe, as a whole, will want to participate, given that we have money that can be put toward this project. Very important project.
it's an opportunity.
It's almost a necessity, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's an urgency because the materials we're looking at have been there somewhere for 100 years.
Very important.
But I think the decisions that should be based on this are imminent next year. EPA is going to decide whether they're going to stop as much as they can, stop some what they can, or what they can afford. And I think if we find out this is less of an issue, then they can go from there. If they find out it's a
Very
high
good.
issue, then that goes to more dramatic methods that they might have to do.
Very good.
And then also by the 15th, if you can let me or us know about dates, because when we get to that year-end place, it's not that great to write a $63,000 or $50,000 check. So if they're okay with saying, okay, you've got commitment from the board around the middle of September, then the check will come 30 days later in the middle of October, then that may be a little bit better. And I don't know what our timing's going to be. I'm just saying, I'd like to know that from you guys. Or if they say, okay, if you're saying, yes, September 15th, we need the check by September 20th, then, so I need to know that.
I'll check. My belief is that they will collect the samples based on what we've been able to talk about today.
Yeah.
And their checks and probably are out in March. I don't know when. It will be months and months before they do the analysis.
Gotcha, okay, so we've got time.
So we've got time.
Yeah, the expensive part of it's all the testing. I mean, if we can get your folks to, when they take the sample for the nutrients, take that second bottle for what we're talking about, so that we don't have to send people out there twice.
Got it.
Then that stuff can
It
set,
falls apart.
it can set someplace before they have to test it and stuff, you
Okay?
Okay, good. All right then. Let's see. Do we have any public comment? You want to come up to the mic, please?
The comment I have is not to disturb what Jamie is all about for this grant, you know, looking for money for the else, this kind of stuff. I'm not going there, okay, I want to give you, I got a phone call yesterday, a very important one, from a person has a method to remove the metals out of the lake sediment. This is how it can be done. I've mentioned his name before. His name is Oscar Morales, okay? And so I get this right. He is the CEO of AXON Nano Biotech. He's the CEO. He used to live here, but now he lives in Seattle. He is working on a prototype which is 30% completed. This prototype, what it does, and he says the prototype will be done by the end of the year, and he's living in Seattle, that the prototype would suck out the mud settlements out of the bottom of the lake or bottom of a river. See, not on the land, but in the water, would suck out the sediments. As it sucks out, it's going to disturb the sediments. But then the heavy metals that are in what comes up are removed, so they don't go in the water column. Period. So you're going to clean up the mud. You don't have to move the mud. Okay, let me just explain the whole thing. But then what happens is that the heavy metals are deposited, I don't have all the details on this thing, but it can be deposited so they actually have heavy metals of cadmium, gold, silver, whatever, phosphorus, whatever. But this is a prototype that is 30% completed. It will be hopefully completed by the end of the year. And I just pass this on as information, not to make any problems with you guys at all. What I'm saying is, I think this is pretty good stuff.
Okay, stop right there. You and I have been down this path.
Yes, we have.
And Oscar couldn't even find a way to get from Seattle to here to meet with DEQ. If he's serious about this, he's going to have to go further than he has. Now, he's already met with or spoken with DEQ. So I almost have to roll the clock back and say, this is the second or third time I'm hearing about this, but I'm not seeing anything. And I don't think he was able to convince DEQ. So it's like, we're going over this again and again, but at some point, if he has something, he's got to get with the right people and present it. And for us to deal with it at this point, I'm going to have to stop this.
Well, all I'm trying to give you information.
No, I'm trying to
do, but I'm saying the past thing was with NIC. That failed. Period. That failed. So
Yeah,
he moved to Seattle.
venture money, right?
He moved to Seattle. He's in a whole different ballgame now of this prototype. And when it's now 30% completed to be done, it's a machine, is what it is.
Right.
Okay. So I'm just saying is here is something that's going to happen, is realizable. This is not science fiction.
Yeah, but
This
that's
is, I'm saying, but all I'm saying is, I just had the conversation because Oscar Morales is the most difficult person to ever get a hold of. He is.
Oscar should let us know when it's 100% the prototype, and we'll be happy to consider it. 30% doesn't do us any good.
Can I call him and mention that then?
100%?
Do it.
Yeah.
But he's got to get the funding, and look, he needs to produce something that he can demonstrate. If he's looking for funding from here, it's not going to happen. We're not in
That's
that
right.
business, okay? He's got
That's
to
the
complete his
prototype.
prototype and prove
Yeah.
his theory. I'm sorry, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've talked to Art about is that one of the responsibilities of the Basin Commission is to look at technical stuff.
Sure.
So we have a technical
Sure.
leadership group. We have a group of all the technical experts
Sure.
from 23 agencies. And my suggestion is that when this individual gets this thing to the point where it's in a presentable format, that we try to get him to come and present
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
TLG. And then I can take a look at it.
Sure.
See what the technical people say, and if it's a feasible thing. You folks aren't in a position to understand all this stuff. I'm not. But that's why I have a TLG.
You know.
That's why I have a technical issue. So that's my suggestion.
We all know.
There you go.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah, no, everybody knows, that's all, I'm not trying to promote
Well, we
anything.
know that.
I'm just saying, folks, here it is.
Thank you,
I
Art.
just come to present, to inform, that's it.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, 1:45, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Now, I want to do,
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.